Hi there, welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about something that affects all of us in the country, which is the massive increase in bills that we've all seen, and I particularly want to talk about my water bill. So my water bill has gone up by 47%, which is the highest in the country. I'm with Southern Water, and it's a clear case of privatisation having failed. Just so we can get into this a little bit, here's what Margaret Thatcher promised when the water industry was first privatised in 1989.
Privatised water is a better deal than nationalised water. That the water privatisation, I believe, will go very successfully indeed. That will go very successfully indeed. And perhaps, therefore, we had better wait and see so that we can pontificate in the light of the facts.
Since privatisation, the owners of private water companies, often foreign entities, foreign shareholders, have taken £57 billion out of the industry, and there's been a fundamental failure to invest in needed infrastructure, and that has led to massive failings in the water industry. And despite this, the bosses of these big companies have received massive pay rises and massive bonuses. The leader of Southern Water, for example, recently had a massive bonus paid out. I forget how much it was. It was over 100,000 just in 1 year, and yet bills are going up by as much as they are. So this is pretty shocking stuff. Now the ideological idea behind privatisation came from neoliberalism, and the idea was that if you create a private market between firms to compete with each other over a good, then that is going to improve over time the delivery of services. And obviously, in the case of some industries, and I'm thinking about the major ones that people argue should be nationalised, but water is a really classic example of this. It's what economists call a natural monopoly. We only have one pipe coming into our house, and so it's not possible to have competition in the water market, and that means that there is bound to be exploitation of consumers, because monopoly power often leads in industries to increases in prices.
First of all, water, regulated prices, privatised firms, no competition, up 26% on average. Some people seeing bill rises of over 50%, billions of pounds paid in dividends to shareholders while companies rank up debts. What are you going to do about it? Is it about time to take it back into public ownership?
Well, with the water industry, I recognise the level of failure that has existed and how angry people are around this. The regulation that's in place now prevents the kind of things that we saw under those years of Conservative government. I understand people seeing dividends taken out of a business and reinvestment not going in is not acceptable to them. It's a much tighter regime now, and where those bills rise, it's to pay for the kind of investment, particularly to make sure we're separating out the sewage side of the water treatment from your water that you get, to prevent the kind of pollution of waterways, which quite rightly, again, the public feel very strongly about.
It's going up 26%. You're in government. This isn't the former government. You're in government. That money hasn't gone back. People are seeing their bills rise. 26% is a regulated price rise. It's going to continue to go up substantially above inflation for at least the next 4 years. That's your responsibility. What are you going to do about it?
The distinction I'm making is this is money to invest in the system rather than going out by way of dividends without that investment taking place.
But the money's already been wasted. Why aren't we recouping that from the water companies who paid billions out in dividends?
That is all part of the new regulatory arrangements that are in place and the wider review of that sector. I'm not in any way defending what has gone on in the past. I know how strongly people feel about it, but they do want to see the investment that will take sewage out of public waterways. They feel very, very strongly about that, and that is in the main where that money is directed to and going. I don't think everything can be in public ownership. There's limited public money, particularly for that investment. You've got to work with the private sector around that, and where you do that properly with the right regulation, that's what delivers for the public.
Now look, I accept some of what he's saying here, but look, the problem was caused by the model that is in place of privatisation and regulation. The model clearly hasn't worked, and it's led to decades of failure, decades of underinvestment, and decades of dividends being taken out of the water system and funneled off to private interest, whilst the rest of us suffer from a system that doesn't work, doesn't function properly, that is literally pumping shit into the water, and we're now having to pay for it. And so the solution surely is to move towards a system where we know for sure that's not going to happen, and that would be nationalisation. Now, the argument that's often made against nationalisation is that it'll cost too much money, but the argument is mistaken if you take into account the fact that whenever you nationalise something, you are taking something into public ownership. So along with the water companies, we'd be bringing on board all of the assets that the water industry owns. And so, yes, there's an upfront cost to the exchequer, to the government, but you're actually buying up assets. So there's a balance there, right? It's not as if you're just chucking money down the drain. Whenever you nationalise something, you're buying up assets as well as creating a liability. So these things balance out. So that is what I think they should do. It's not going to immediately solve the problem. I'm still very, very annoyed, and I think everybody else should be. But unfortunately, this is what you get from a bad policy implemented a very long time ago. With the seeds were sown in the 1980s. We're dealing with them now. And unfortunately, we've all just got to suck it up for the time being as our bills rise. Well, I'm a little bit annoyed today, but that's all from me. Goodbye and best wishes.